Kate Milafalcha, welcome to Irish Granny Helen. Welcome to Debbra Lupien, voice of the Akashic Records. Hello.
Hello. Good to see you again.
Nice to see you again. It's been a while.
Yes.
Quite a fancy boudoir you got behind you there.
Yeah. Someplace like Ramon might sneak into in the middle of the night.
Happening place, huh, Deborah? Okay, we are talking today about Ramon Novarro, who was a silent film star who lived way past the time of silent films and came to a very tragic end. And there's no mystery about it. They know what happened. But I always thought that he was an interesting character. And the circumstances of his death were odd by the standards of the time. You know, they were kind of a scandal. So I thought we could talk about that. But let's start out. He was born in 1899 in Mexico. He was one of 13 children. Yeah, I relate. His grandfather was once the governor of the state of Chihuahua. His father was a dentist. So you get the impression it came from people that were probably pretty well educated and not rich, but comfortable. And they moved from Mexico to Los Angeles because of the Mexican Revolution. They just wanted peace, and they got out of there. I have a question for him. My first question. His mother, if I got this right, was half Spanish and half Aztec. And I guess I didn't realize that by this time, so we're talking, the late 1890s, that there were any people left who were wholly Aztec. So I have a question about that. How indigenous was she? And by that, I don't mean anything weird. I just mean how much entrenched in her indigenous culture was she, or had she been kind of dragged into white culture? What was left of her Aztec culture?
Okay, so Mr. Novarro, thank you for coming forward to talk to us. We'd like to know about your mother. We understand she was part Aztec, or she was full Aztec, you said, right?
Half,
okay. Half Aztec. So did she retain any of the Aztec culture, or had she been homogenized into the modern world? She retained some, but it was more like a suggestion, a whisper. It wasn't definite. It was already fading because she had been young when the shift had happened.
Oh, she would have been not even born. Did she have stories about her, like her great great grandparents? They would have probably been enslaved by the Spanish. Because if he was born in the 1890s, let's pretend she was, what, 20 years old? I don't know. She could have been as old as 40 when he was born. So she was born sometime in the mid 1800s. So I guess it would have been like great 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 grandparents. Did she remember any stories?
Mm-hmm. Did your mother have any stories that she shared with you about her family, her culture, her heritage? She had sketchy stories, but they lacked detail. They were more like dreams because so much had been lost through the years. But what little she recalled, she did share with me.
Really difficult stories to listen to. His second cousin was Dolores Del Rio. Does that name ring a bell?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she was a very successful actress after talkies, and I just think that's interesting. So how did he get interested in being in the silent films? He started in 1917, so he would have been 18 years old. How did he end up doing silent films?
So how did you get into silent films? he was very active physically in that time, and he had a girlfriend who had some connections. Introduced him to the right person. He got discovered, and it went from there.
Uh, he became a rival of Rudolph Valentino. He was known as the Latin lover. His last name was actually Sabatini, and they made him change it to Navarro. I don't know why. They just did. But his big hit that made him super famous was in 1923. He made the movie Scaramouche. Have you ever seen that? I read the book,
No.
and not really my taste in stories, but he was the dark Latin lover, you know. And then he made Ben-Hur, and he was considered a sensation because of the revealing costumes. How did he feel about that? How did he feel about being objectified?
Yeah. How did you feel about being objectified when you were in Ben-Hur? Well, being objectified is kind of the Latin way, so he was okay with it, and it helped his career, so he was very happy to be noticed.
Did he drive his own horses in that movie?
Did you drive your own horses in that movie? He did, and he had had experiences with horses as he was a young man. Caballero.
It's interesting to think of what was Los Angeles like then? I always wonder. Los Angeles was a really interesting place in those days.
Yeah, anything you can tell us about Los Angeles in that time? Well, very different from what you see today. Lots of open space, but it was beginning to attract people from all walks of life. That's what made it really interesting. The different people, the different cultures, and the way they all intermingled, got to know one another. It was a very expansive experience.
I heard that the movie business really attracted young people. And so, in a very short period of time, there was this influx of really attractive, really talented, not all of them, and very good looking, ambitious young people. And that most of the time, Los Angeles was big, gigantic party. Is that true?
Is what Helen said true about LA? Yes, LA is always, the movie business has always attracted the beautiful people. And I was happy to be one of them.
Oh, well. So he must have known Rudolph Valentino. Did he know him? I mean, like off screen, the real person.
Yeah. Had you met in person Rudolph Valentino? They did know each other. They had met, but they weren't friends, just acquaintances.
Did they have a professional rivalry, really?
Did you have a professional rivalry with him, or was that just publicity? No, there was a rivalry because parts for the Latin lover were not that common. So they competed for them. So yeah.
So Ramon was a popular swashbuckler, pirate.
Yeah.
And he did a lot of romantic leads, but his first talkie was in 1929, which was right about the time anybody did a talkie. And he was, this cracks me up, he was a singing French soldier in this movie called Devil May Care. Could he sing?
Did you sing in that movie, or were you dubbed? See, no, that was him singing. He's quite proud of his voice.
Yeah, I haven't seen it. I haven't heard it, but it just cracked me up, French soldier. How did it feel impersonating a French man when you were actually from Mexico?
Yeah. So was it a struggle for you to be a Frenchman? How did you deal with the accent? Well, like now, they had coaches that helped with the dialect, and when you're singing, it's far easier to take on the accent and carry it through. So that was a good stepping stone to be able to do it. Between you and me, my accent wasn't all that good, but that wasn't the point of the movie, so
Yeah.
it worked.
Who did he like to have to work with? Like what stars whose names we might recognize did he like to work with?
So can you name anybody that you enjoyed working with during that time? Gloria Swanson. And there was Helen. I'm not getting the last name, but I see her face.
Helen Hayes?
Helen Hayes, yes.
Did he ever work with Louise Brooks?
Did you work with Louise Brooks? No.
No, she'd already gone. Yeah. In 1935, MGM did not renew his contract, and I wasn't able to find out why. How come they didn't?
So why was your contract not renewed? The days of the Latin lover were already starting to fade. They were moving into different styles, and there was less need. At that point, Valentino had a bigger name, so they kept him and shunted
Well,
me
he
off to the
died.
side.
Valentino died.
He was dead?
He died. I want to say like late 20s. Yeah, he got did he get appendicitis or something? Really, it was awful. Very quickly, yeah. I sometimes confuse him with oh God, Houdini. Houdini got punched in the gut, and I think it ruptured something.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, so he did act after that, but it was more sporadic. He worked for smaller ones. He worked for Mexican dramas, and he worked for French comedies. Oh, his French accent must not have been that bad. And he appeared on stage in England, and he had some small roles. And he occasionally, in the 50s and 60s, he did TV. What did he do in TV? I don't even know. I wasn't able to find that. Did he like doing TV?
So did you enjoy doing TV? Well, it was a job, paycheck.
That was something that I read that I thought was really interesting. Of many of the people who were in early Hollywood were profligate. They burned through money. They didn't save. They didn't plan. They just, money just went. And he was really, really smart. In the early 30s, even, he was making $100,000 a film. And what he did was he invested in real estate. And anybody knows about California at that time, real estate was like gold. And it became even more so as time went by. Anything you owned was way more profitable. He bought Frank Lloyd Wright's son, Lloyd's house. So Frank Lloyd Wright's son, Lloyd, was also an architect. And Ramon bought one of the houses that his Lloyd designed. And it became known as the Samuel Novarro house because the people that originally ordered it, were called Samuel. Well, actually, I had forgotten this. It's been so long since I've looked at this. The house was designed for Louis Samuel. Samuel was Ramon Novarro's manager. And
okay.
I've forgotten this story. This is good. He discovered that Samuel had embezzled money from him to pay for the house. And so he took ownership of the house in exchange for the money that was embezzled. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so tell us about the hot story with your manager and the embezzlement, you taking the house. I was pretty upset, as you can imagine, but he had been a good manager up to that point. I liked the house. It seemed like a good deal, and I was happy to part ways with him at that point and take over the house.
It was built in 1928, and then Diane Keaton bought it. And when she bought it in 1988, so 60 years later, it sold for $1.5 million. And in 2019, it went on the market for $4.3 million. What does he think of that?
What do you think of your old house selling for $4.3 million? It should have gone for more. It's a very valuable house with some historic facts about it. I personally think it should have gone for more.
But how shocking is it for somebody from the 20s to see how the price of stuff has skyrocketed?
Well, that's a long time. So, and remember, he was making $100,000 a movie. That was, for that time, that was huge compared to what other people were getting. So
I know.
when you contrast the two, to go from the 100,000 to the million, isn't that big of a leap?
I remember when I was a child, a friend of mine told me, now taking it with a grain of salt, but she told me that when her father came home from World War II, they bought the house that they were living in when I knew her, and it cost $9,000. That's dramatic. I thought that sounded like a lot of money, because I was a kid. Yeah. But I think about that now. Wow. Okay. Okay. So he was able to maintain a certain lifestyle despite not working much because he was really good with money he invested. Where did he get his money smarts?
Where did you get your money savvy to amass a fortune? His parents instilled some good, solid values in him that you have to be responsible with what you have so that you can take care of your future. He did that, and he was able to live a good life as a result of it.
Oh, so smart.
Yeah.
So we're going to get into a topic. I don't know if he'll want to talk about it. And just to be clear, this is not any judgment because we don't care. It's more to understand the situation. So he was homosexual and a Roman Catholic, and there was a gigantic conflict between those two things. And I'm wondering if he could talk about that. Mostly I'm curious about how open was he able to be? Did his family know? If they did know, how did they react? If they didn't know, what did he think they would say?
Okay. So are you willing to talk about your sexuality with us? Sure. Not a problem anymore. And he's saying, and by the way, I would call myself bisexual.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Okay. I don't
know.
So, okay.
Were you openly bisexual in that time? You really couldn't be. People in the movie industry were kinder about such things, but the world at large was not. So it really needed to be kept private. You didn't broadcast it to the world, particularly if you were selling yourself as a Latin lover. They weren't making gay films back then. So what about your family? What did they think about it? They wished that it had been different, but they loved me and they accepted me. And how did you reconcile being homosexual and being a Roman Catholic? There were conflicts that I had to deal with. Generally, I just didn't think about it. I figured if God made me that way, it was good enough, and I would just live my life.
Well, exactly. Am I assuming too much to think that to be bi may have made life a little bit easier because at least you didn't have to totally put on an act to go out with a woman and have a cover story to protect, your private life. Did it make it a little bit easier?
So do you think it made it easier for you because you were bi, as you say? I don't know if I would say that.
Mm,
Many men in my situation had to sometimes live as a straight man
mm,
with all that entails in order to get along in the world. So in our culture, we were used to having to put on that facade. So being bi really didn't change that for me.
mm. Okay. Um, it says he was romantically involved with a variety of people over the years. Uh, so in the 20s, he had a relationship with the guy at the LA Philharmonic, the guy who worked on the LA Philharmonic. And then he had a relationship with the journalist Herbert Howe, and then with Noel Sullivan, who was a wealthy San Francisco philanthropist. My question would be, okay, this Sullivan was from San Francisco. Did he have to go out of town and kind of lie low to have any kind of a life outside of LA so people wouldn't gossip?
So what do you say to that? You went to San Francisco to be with Sullivan. Was that because you had to find a different place to live your life? I happen to like San Francisco. He was from there. He had a comfortable abode. We enjoyed being together. And San Francisco was also a little more accepting than other places would have been. So it worked out for us.
Well, he still lived in LA, but his boyfriend was in San Francisco. So I assumed it was easier to get out of town, right? So then, sad to say, he was murdered October 30th of 1968. So what was he, 60? He was 69. He was murdered by two brothers who were what's called rent boys. So it was a weird situation. He regularly hired male, sex workers to come to the house. He had a house in Laurel Canyon, and this is not the Lloyd Wright house. This is a different house. But he hadn't called these two. Somehow they got wind of there's this rich old movie star who lives in the canyon. It's secluded. He's used to calling people. So they called him and they offered to go up and visit with him. They assumed he had money hidden at home. So they went up there and there was just a dreadful scene, as you can imagine. And eventually they beat him so badly he choked on his own blood and he died. Yeah. All they got out of that, $20. So did he understand? He must have understood that kind of relationship, on the phone with a stranger coming to your house would be risky. I guess I'm answering my own question. I was going to ask him, why wouldn't he have met at a hotel? But then the people at the hotel would know. I mean, he was well known. So is that why he had them come to his house?
So did you set up your assignations at your house for privacy? Was that the reason? Because you had to know it would be risky. My lifestyle was always risky. It just came with the territory. I was more comfortable at home. I was accustomed to inviting people to my home. I made the mistake of trusting them when they approached me. I was flattered. My ego got the best of me, and I paid the price.
Yeah. What does he think about the changes that have happened in gender identity politics? All of that. What does he think about that?
What do you think about the state of gender politics today? It's devastating to have come so far, to have brought openness and acceptance to that lifestyle, that culture, then to grasp it all away, setting the movement back decades.
Yeah. Does he have insight? Now that he's on the other side, is there any kind of insight that he can share? Like, what's wrong with people? Why is it such a big deal? I don't get it. I've never understood why this was such a gigantic issue, other than religious nonsense. And my opinion. Sorry. Does he have other insight into this?
So can you give us some insight into why people behave the way they do about sexuality? What is that all about? Yes, it's true. There is some basis for discrimination due to religion, but there's a deeper truth that you're overlooking, and that is many men in their heart of hearts are homosexual. And they're terrified of allowing themselves to live that lifestyle. The ones who do take a walk on the wild side keep it very hush hush because their reputation, their lives are at stake, and they know this. It's hypocrisy at a grand level, but it's what they believe they must do because of their fear of living openly as who they really are. And because of that, the resentment is deep towards those who are able to live a more open life. And that causes them to act out.
Yeah, I can see that. Fear of who they are themselves and anger that they can't be who they are. Yeah.
Yeah, he's showing me like it's holding up a mirror to them and they don't like what they see. And so they smash the mirror.
Yeah. So I don't want to name names. Oh, I love to name names, but I'm not going to. But the situation with our present politicians, especially in the Republican Party, that hypocrisy seems to abound. I've done videos about it. If anybody wants to know what I'm hinting at, you can go watch. But the hypocrisy just astounds me.
Yeah.
Why would somebody who doesn't want the truth about himself to be made public become a public figure? It's crazy. I don't get it. Why would they do that?
So what do you have to say about that? Why would they put themselves in a position to be exposed? It's a very twisted way of life. They're power hungry. They want to be out there having the jobs, getting the accolades and the money, the power. And somehow in their twisted logic, they believe that will afford them the ability to keep their sexual activities private. Of course, they're mistaken, as you've seen over and over again. But they're deluded. That's the simplest explanation.
I could go on and on with this because there's just so much bizarre hypocrisy that's going on, and it's completely transparent. I don't know who they think they're kidding, but why they even think they have to kid, I mean, it's a non-issue. It's stupid. Okay, so what did he think? Okay, so he, they caught the guys that killed him and they went to prison, but one of them got released in the 1970s. Well, they both got released in the 1970s. One of them got rearrested for other crimes and spent longer for those crimes than he did for killing Ramon Novarro. What does he think of that?
What do you think about the fact that they got more time for another crime than they did for killing you. It's not something I spend much time thinking about. It's over and done with. Their life, their choices.
Well, I think that's, the rational way to look at it, but it is maddening when you're on this side. It's maddening because it's so unjust.
Yeah.
Tom, one of the brothers, did himself in. Paul, the other one, was killed in prison. He was serving a 60-year sentence for non-consensual contact. That's the best I can do. Sorry. Novarro was buried in Calvary Cemetery in East LA and has a star on the Hollywood Walk.
Oh, how nice.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He was beautiful, really handsome. I should probably not let it go to your head, Mr. Novarro. He was really, really good looking. Yeah. I'm curious, what does he think of movies today?
So what do you think about the movies today? The quality has really gone downhill.
I would agree.
It's like they're all Pulp Fiction. They're just putting it out as fast as they can without the sense that went into the planning and the sensibilities of that. You're telling a story, you're entertaining, but you've got to maintain a certain standard. That seems to have eroded for the most part, and that's sad.
Well, there's a real catering to what makes money. And for whatever reason, we could talk about it for 6 hours. People seem more interested in the kind of fluff like the comic book movies. And so there are endless movies about comic book characters, but there's nothing of any substance, or very little of any substance. And I'm not all crazy about that. Is he familiar with the movie Conclave?
Are you familiar with the movie Conclave? No.
Okay. Well, then never mind. What do you think? Since we're on the subject of the Pope, what do you think of this Pope Leo?
So what do you think of the new Pope, Leo? He likes him. He likes his honesty, his forthrightness, and his courage in standing up against some of the old traditions. He could go further, but he's on the right track.
Thank you. I like to hear that. He doesn't have the strongest stand on LGBTQ issues or women's issues. But I guess we have to wait until we secure democracy before we go after that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But he certainly has taken a strong moral stand on speaking of all of us, humanity in general, because there's plenty of disruption everywhere on our relationships, the war, violence, and being distracted and spending money on things like that rather than, I don't know, feed people. And then our care or lack thereof for the planet.
Well, he's bringing the true Christ consciousness forward, reminding people of what they once knew.
And it's really forthright. I mean, he doesn't doll it up, he just says, this is wrong. If you believe in the basic, even just the philosophical idea behind the words of Jesus, you don't have to be a Christian to believe that, that plenty of people from other religions, and there's a real nexus of most philosophical beliefs that you treat other people the way you want to be treated. It's very basic. And he's not afraid to say that, which is just astounding these days. Nobody says the truth outright, forthrightly. So really respect him for that. Of course, he says, well, I didn't mean anybody specific. Yeah, right.
Yeah. He said he's a good man for the times.
I think so. Can you ask him, does he have any questions for us?
Do you have any questions for us? Yeah, after all these years, why did you come knocking on my door?
Well, this is my first opportunity to do something like this. I have always admired your movies. I know who you were. I've known who you were since I was a young teenager. Love the silent film era. I liked you better than Rudolph Valentino. I'm just saying. And I also think that the tragedy of your death kind of brings in a topic that isn't discussed enough, which is the prejudice against people and I don't know, because you're interesting. Well, why not?
Yeah. So he's kissing your hand and saying thank you, gracious lady.
Oh, ooh la la. That's French. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's so much fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
much
So I
fun.
would like to ask, maybe you know this, what happened to his fortune? Did he have heirs?
I don't even think it occurred to me to ask. I don't know. Maybe could he tell you? I don't know. I mean, no, I don't have any information. I just have what happened to the men who did it. Nothing about his house or. Man, now keep in mind he was living in a different house by that time.
Yeah, but if he owned all that real estate, he would have had a significant sum.
I don't know. He must have left a will, I would think.
Maybe.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. So what happened to your fortune after you were gone? Some of it did go to his family. So I think he had like nieces and nephews, but some of it was stolen.
A big shock, right?
Yeah.
People are so weird about money.
People taking advantage because, his reputation had been smeared and it was easier to do that and take advantage. Like the carpetbaggers,
I have one word for them. Karma.
Yes.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. It's been fun.
Thank you, Ramon. We appreciate it.
Yes, thank you so much. That's hard.
Yeah. But he's not sad. I don't get a sad energy. It's like he lived a good long life for men at that time. That was a good age. He did what he wanted to do. He had lots of money. He was successful.
Yeah. I imagine, to be connected in Hollywood, to have a comfortable lifestyle because you have money socked away. California is a pretty nice place to live if you can live well. If you've got a nice house and in a quiet neighborhood, it's it's sunny 364 days a year, just about. At least it was in those days. And I could see where you would lead a very comfortable life. It's a beautiful place. Yeah, or it was.
Yeah, and I don't get the sense that when he was coming up, there was the same grooming that was going on of the young stars. So that whole unfortunate situation is going on as well. He didn't have to deal with that.
Well, there was predation, I think, going on the women, but that was pervasive throughout the culture. You weren't a secretary unless you were willing to head over to the couch, and I think that was true everywhere. We're going to have to look into Louise Brooks. She's one of my favorites. I just love Louise Brooks. And she was a very interesting person who took off to Germany when the movies went to non-silent anymore. She went to Germany, and it wasn't because of her voice. She just, I think, well, we'll have to talk about it another time. I have a theory about that. But she ended up becoming a gigantic star in Germany. And this is post-World War I, pre-World War II, like the very late 20s and the early-ish 30s, but she ended up in poverty. And that's an interesting story. So we'll have to look into her.
Yes. Sounds
See, I
good.
do like silent film stars. I wasn't making that up. I really do.
No, I believe you.
Yeah, that's interesting. It was a really unusual time and place. Excuse me. Weak Irish lungs. Okay. Thank you, Deborah. That was fun, huh?
It was fun.
Maybe we should do this again soon sometime.
I think so.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We'll be back. Slán go fóill. Sláinte.
Bye.